there's a crisis, when there's some kind of need, the transit workers always step up.
A TTC bus driver hailed a hero, rescuing a driver in a fiery crash.
Tonight, a stolen car slams into two buses and bursts into flames. Good evening. The TTC driver is recovering in hospital tonight.
The dramatic scene unfolded early this morning. The driver of a stolen vehicle suspected of running a red light and causing it all. CTV's Sean Leathong joins us live from Bathurst and Eglinton with the story. Sean.
Well, Nathan and Michelle, it's hard to imagine the car driving in this direction very early this morning, hitting the driver's side of a TTC bus and sending them both into another lane. But then the driver of that bus having the presence of mind to spot that the other driver was in danger, getting out of his bus right after he's been hit and helping that driver. Flames pouring out of a vehicle after running a red light and colliding with a TTC bus. The driver of the car pulled to safety by the driver of the bus that had been hit.
He stepped up when needed in order to save a life.
The driver of the car sent to hospital with life-threatening injuries. The bus driver and two others to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries.
I don't think the video did it any justice, but it was quite loud.
It was 4:48 this morning. Kevin Shen shot this video from his condo. The sound of the crash waking him up. He says the fire started minutes later.
The blaze started getting a little bigger. I turned away for a little bit and I heard a loud bang. So I went back to the window and I saw that the blaze got way, way larger.
According to police, the car, a Honda Civic, was traveling east on Eglinton Avenue at a high rate of speed before hitting a bus that was traveling north on Bathurst, sending both vehicles into another bus in the westbound lanes.
We've also have early indications that the Honda motor vehicle was actually stolen.
The fire was quickly under control and collision reconstruction was on scene. The intersection of Eglinton and Bathurst closed for most of the day. As crews worked to clear the debris through the afternoon, it was becoming clear that the driver of the bus acted selflessly, getting out of the bus and going towards the burning vehicle and pulling that driver out of the car, possibly saving their life. The president of the ATU Local 113 calling the bus driver a hero.
He let me know personally that he didn't have time to think, he just acted. He saw somebody in trouble and he reacted quickly.
The front of the Honda Civic suffered heavy damage as the inside was completely burned out, along with the driver's side of the bus. ATU Local 113 President Marvin Alfred says the driver has been on the job for just 2 years.
I'm very proud of the operator being able to be that aware in order to, being able to look after other people in their time of crisis themselves.
He says the driver of the bus is recovering in hospital but remains in shock. There's no update on the condition of the driver of the Civic and no word on any charges. Now, the traffic is moving well behind me right now. You can see it going through, and the intersection had been closed for about 11 hours, having opened at about 4 o'clock today. Reporting live, I'm Sean Leathong. Michelle, send it back to you.
Thank you, Sean. Also tonight, safety concerns raised after an electric unicycle crashes into a woman near a bus stop. The warning from police for drivers of these motorized vehicles.
We turn now to Hurricane Milton, downgraded to Category 3 today, but still an extremely dangerous storm as it barrels toward Florida.
Milton is forecast to make landfall around midnight near Tampa Bay as millions of people along the West Coast are under evacuation orders. This is a live look from Naples, Florida tonight as the state braces for this monster storm's arrival. Parts of the coast are already getting rain, wind, and tornadoes. Authorities issued increasingly dire warnings today with ferocious winds and potentially life-threatening storm surge anticipated. CTV's Joy Malbin reports.
Heavy rain, wind, and a swath of tornadoes are touching down in the south as this massive storm begins to batter parts of Florida. The warnings could not be more stark.
There is high confidence that this hurricane is going to pack a major punch and do an awful lot of damage.
Nearly 6 million people ordered to evacuate, scrambling to get out and running into gas shortages.
I've been here for 38 years and never had one that forced us to do this. This is the only place that has fuel.
Hurricane Milton, one of the strongest Atlantic storms ever recorded and possibly the most destructive. The power of it felt by these hurricane hunters flying into the eye of the storm to measure its intensity. The Gulf Coast, the Tampa Bay region in the bullseye, bracing for a storm surge, a wall of water as high as 5 meters, along with punishing winds and flash flooding.
This is a storm of the century. We haven't had this potential impact in over 100 years.
They can't say it enough. Officials warning anyone staying behind, find shelter, hunker down. You're on your own.
Write your name on your arm so we can identify you. We're all talking the same way. Get out of these areas because we can replace your home. We can't replace your life.
And it's not just the hurricane. The White House is battling a storm of dangerous misinformation and crazy conspiracies about federal disaster aid.
Former President Trump has led the onslaught of lies. Assertions have been made that property is being confiscated. That's simply not true. They're saying the money is needed for this crisis is being diverted to migrants. What a ridiculous thing to say.
And this storm is not to be trifled with, and time is running out. Officials now warning residents in the storm zone to shelter in place. Some counties issuing curfews as conditions continue to get worse. Joy Malbon, CTV News, Washington.
Once again, here's a live shot as Hurricane Milton approaches Florida. As it does, Canadians are being urged to leave now.
To all Canadians that are registered with the embassy, every one of you should have received an email. And the message is clear, is please follow the U.S. authorities' evacuation orders. This is about making sure that your life is safe, that the life of your loved ones are safe as well. And for all of those who are thinking of going to Florida right now, wait, this is not the time. So, of course, we're in contact with American officials.
The Foreign Affairs Minister says her office doesn't know exactly how many Canadians are now in the area.
In preparation for the storm, 150 employees with Hydro One are making their way toward Florida tonight. 100 power line workers who have just been released from assisting Georgia power workers after Hurricane Helene are being redeployed to help Florida Power and light crews. They'll be joined by 50 Hydro One forestry workers who are currently en route to the Sunshine State. The crews will be dispatched to assist local workers in restoring power to affected communities once Hurricane Milton has passed.
And at Pearson Airport, some flights to parts of Florida were able to depart today, but for the most part, airlines canceled their service to the state. Many travel hubs there have temporarily shut as Milton approaches. Carriers have flexible booking policies in place and advise checking your flight status before heading to Pearson.
And still ahead, putting the power of Hurricane Milton into perspective. CTV's Mike Walker steps into a simulator for an eye-opening look at the strength of the winds barreling toward Florida.
And with more on Hurricane Milton and its path towards Florida, Jessica Smith is tracking the storm and joins us now with more. Jess, the storm could make landfall tonight.
We've already seen it push a ton of water and really high winds along that west coast. And we are looking at winds right now in excess of 200 kilometers per hour. And that is only just the beginning as it makes landfall this evening. We'll take a live look in towards Tampa right now, and you can see from just the shaking of the camera just how strong those winds are. Areas towards St. Petersburg, just south of there, they're also calling for the system to kind of make landfall there. Taking a look back at our map again, we will watch this very closely as we make our way through the rest of our evening. Here at home, a significantly different story, passing showers through that kind of early portion of our afternoon, but it has cleared out and we have a lovely end to the day, albeit a cool one. Coming up, your full forecast and more on Milton, but right now, send things back to Nathan and Michelle.
Thank you, Jess. Toronto City Council met today, but a controversy surrounding Olivia Chow seemed to overshadow official business.
The mayor did not attend the vigil for the one-year anniversary of the October 7 attacks in Israel, and today was forced to explain why. CTV's Natalie Johnson joins us live with the story. Natalie.
Well, Michelle, the organizers behind Monday's vigil are accusing the mayor of letting down the Jewish community. Chow is blaming a missed email, an excuse that some of her council colleagues are questioning.
2 days after the vigil that marked the one-year anniversary of the October 7th attacks in Israel,
Good morning.
Mayor Olivia Chow was under fire for not showing up.
I regret that I missed the Jewish, the memorial, the anniversary.
Tens of thousands of Torontonians gathered to mark the solemn day. The organizers hurt that Chow was not among them.
It was very noticeable for the community that she wasn't present. We had about roughly 40 elected officials from all levels of government who attended, and the fact that she wasn't there was quite disappointing.
On the radio this morning, Chow cited a scheduling conflict.
I got caught up in the long discussion on Pike Lanes over at Kingsway area where the emotions were very high. and the meeting went quite long.
Right.
And by the time I was done, I was exhausted.
Later blaming a miscommunication in her office.
My office did not get the email that was sent to us.
The organizers insisting they sent 3 different emails and followed up with Chow's staff.
This was an event that saw thousands of Torontonians attend, politicians from all across the province. So surely there was an awareness in your office that went beyond a missed email from the organization behind the event.
Probably. Our office, as you know, was getting ready for council on Wednesday.
Councillor James Pasternak, meanwhile, says he'd flagged the event to the mayor directly.
I must admit we were disappointed that she wasn't there. This was a major community event. She is the mayor for all Torontonians.
Missing an email about a really important event seems like you have either real problems in your office, you aren't aware of the days of the week, or there's something more going on.
It comes after Chow did not attend the Israeli flag raising at City Hall in May, or the massive walk with Israel in June.
We try and reiterate to the community that we're standing shoulder to shoulder with them, that they're not forgotten, that they're not alone. But on October 7th, they were alone because the mayor wasn't there. And I think she owes the Jewish community here in Toronto an apology.
Yes, I will apologize for not being able to make Monday evening's event.
She needs to take some leadership and action, and an apology is just not going to be good enough without some concrete action from her.
The mayor acknowledging the broader pain and anguish still felt in the city 1 year after the October 7th attacks. Chow's office said late today that their staff had created multiple new points of contact with the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs so that, quote, they don't miss invitations to important events. Reporting live at City Hall, I'm Natalie Johnson. Michelle, over to you.
Thank you, Natalie. We turn to concerns about sharing roads and sidewalks in Toronto.
This after a woman was struck and seriously injured by a motorized unicycle in Etobicoke. You've likely seen them whizzing around the city. Turns out they're not allowed on public property. CTV John Musselman joins us live with the story. John.
And Nathan, police tell us that they can reach 70 kilometers an hour, and one of them struck a pedestrian here on Lakeshore last night. The accident happened just after 10 o'clock last night. Witnesses say a woman near the bus stop on Lakeshore Boulevard and 26th Street was hit by a man riding an electric unicycle. The woman and the unicycle rider both suffered serious but non-life-threatening injuries. This resident lives nearby. He didn't want to appear on camera, but he describes what he saw.
Her head was wrapped. It looked like her arm was probably broken and she was bloodied up a bit.
This video from a nearby business shows emergency crews arriving on the scene. The victim and the unicycle rider are just out of frame.
They're pretty cool, except for the fact that they're totally illegal for our roads.
Still, the crash has raised safety concerns regarding the use of electric unicycles. This video was put out on social media by Toronto police regarding their use.
You can be charged for operating an unsafe motor vehicle because they're motor vehicles. Some of these things will go 70 kilometers an hour. Here's one driving through stopped traffic on the roads of Toronto. Yeah, not okay.
According to the City of Toronto and Toronto Police, nothing has changed. Electric or gas-powered unicycles are only permitted on private property. The electric unicycle type of vehicles that are often seen operated on roadways, sidewalks, and parks do not have any exemption to be operated. They are treated as motor vehicles, have all the same requirements as motor vehicles, and face the same fines as motor vehicles. As they do not conform to any of the safety standards required, they're not eligible to be licensed or insured. The Toronto Municipal Code prohibits their use on sidewalks, parks, or municipal property.
You hate to see kids riding on the street, but there's a lot of seniors that get hurt, right?
I've seen a lot of those guys kitted out with the big headlights, the knee pads, so they're anticipating going fast, possibly wiping out as well.
The exact cause of the accident remains under investigation. But police tell us that the 45-year-old unicycle driver has since been charged with careless driving under the Highway Traffic Act. Reporting live, I'm John Musselman. Back to you.
Thank you, John. In Scarborough, paramedics say a pedestrian was left with critical life-threatening injuries after she was struck by a bus. The CTV News chopper spotted a yellow school bus on the scene near Kingswood and Kingston Roads. Emergency crews were called to the crash just after 4 p.m. Kingston Road is closed in the area for the investigation.
A woman suspected of being a serial killer made a court appearance today.
Sabrina Kauldhar is charged with 3 separate murders in Toronto, Niagara, and Hamilton. And our Beth McDonnell joins us live with the latest. Beth.
Michelle, Kauldhar appeared virtually from custody in front of a justice of the peace this afternoon. Her lawyer raised concerns about her mental fitness. She is an alleged serial killer accused of killing 3 people in Toronto, Niagara Falls, and Hamilton within 3 days. In court Wednesday afternoon, 30-year-old Sabrina Kauldhar of Toronto appeared from custody wearing a green jumper and black head covering. She did not speak other than saying her name. Kauldhar's lawyer said there are fitness concerns and she has applied for legal aid, but requires further assistance to follow up on it and requested medical attention. On October 1st, police say the first incident involved a woman in her 60s. She was found deceased in a home near Keele and Dundas. Police believe the second and third incidents on October 2nd and 3rd were random attacks. Officers say 47-year-old Lance Cunningham was pronounced dead in a park in Niagara Falls following reports of a disturbance, and 77-year-old Mario Bilic was found in a Hamilton parking lot with injuries consistent of a stabbing. Kauldhar was arrested later that day at a hotel in Burlington. She's facing 1 charge of second-degree murder and 2 charges of first-degree murder. For now, Kauldhar's case has been moved to a mental health court where a physician will be able to do an assessment. Kauldhar is set to be back in court October 17th. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Beth. The homicide unit has laid a charge of murder after a man's body was found in a Midtown home over the weekend. On Saturday, Toronto police say they carried out a wellness check near Glencairn and Avenue Road. That's where they found 82-year-old Henry Joseph, dead under suspicious circumstances. His son, 36-year-old Andrew Joseph, was arrested the following day. He's now charged with first-degree murder.
And police have identified a man killed earlier this month. 54-year-old Paulo Jose Pedro was found stabbed outside a restaurant near St. Clair and Jane. He was later pronounced dead at the scene. A 13-year-old suspect who cannot be identified under the Youth Criminal Justice Act has been charged with first-degree murder.
There's a promise from Queen's Park tonight to conduct an audit of children's aid societies.
It comes after the Premier raised concerns of financial mismanagement. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris reports.
The promise is to leave no stone unturned to help kids in an audit of Ontario's 37 non-Indigenous children's aid societies.
We want every child, every youth in this province to be set up for success, regardless of their circumstance.
The review will look at the quality of service, staffing, compensation, and finances, with deficits rising. Last week, the Premier said he'd heard what he called
nightmare stories about the abuse of taxpayers' money. Working in Taj Mahals, they're paying rent $100,000 for rent. The managers are giving themselves a bonus.
The minister in charge insists the money is there.
We provided unprecedented funding to the sector.
$1.7 billion this year, a figure that's increased by $129 million over the last decade.
While child protection cases has reduced by 29%.
But the Ontario Association of Children's Aid Societies says those cases are getting more complex and more expensive. That the number of kids requiring care costing more than $200,000 annually has doubled in the last 3 years, from 174 to 354.
What we need is immediate investment, immediate action to ensure that services are available, that they're safe.
And housing available.
We have kids sleeping in hotel rooms. We have kids sleeping in Airbnbs and children's aid societies. This is all completely unacceptable.
It's something Ontario's ombudsman has been troubled by. He's already investigating. Taylor says the problem isn't just underfunding in the child welfare system, but in other supports like autism and mental health, leaving parents to make tough choices.
They're handing their kids over to a system, hoping that they're going to be able to get better services, that they'll get quicker services. And we know that's not the case.
The government is just starting the process of looking for a third party to perform the audit. The goal is to have a report to act on in the spring. At Queen's Park, Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
Another beluga whale has died at Marineland, the fourth since last November at the Niagara Falls Park. This news means 16 belugas and one killer whale have now died at the park since 2019. Provincial Animal Welfare Services has been investigating Marineland since 2020. A spokesperson for Solicitor General Michael Kersner says inspectors have been at the park 200 times.
The Canadian government is providing an additional $15 million in aid to Lebanon. The money will help Canadian and international aid groups provide food, water, emergency health care, and other assistance. It comes on top of $10 million in aid announced at the end of September. Canada is also sending relief items from its stockpiles, including 5,000 blankets and 1,000 hygiene kits. The new funding follows an escalation in the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. Ottawa says it is taking a terrible toll on civilians in Lebanon and beyond.
Tensions are also high in the West Bank. CTV's Heather Wright was there today and spoke to a family about the situation they're facing.
Each day, Fouad Hosni Al-Jabari comes to central Nablus, where he sells bunches of green spinach. There's no work here, he says, nowhere to find a job. Roughly 3 million Palestinians live in the occupied West Bank, a chunk of land west of the Jordan River that has been occupied by Israel since the 1967 war. Life here is full of checkpoints and patrols and uncertainty. We live in a jail, just eat and drink, and that's it. The economic situation in the West Bank has worsened in the last year. The poverty rate has more than doubled, and unemployment is soaring. 15-year-old Nader quit school so he could earn money. He pushes shopping carts at the market, a job that pays 30 shekels or $10 Canadian a day. He might want to be a carpenter when he grows up, but he has no plans to leave this land. It is our home, he says. Soldiers come, but we will resist. Israel has ramped up its military activity in the West Bank in the last year. There are more frequent raids and heavy restrictions on freedom of movement.
So we just got turned around at a checkpoint trying to get into Nablus. They aren't letting any cars in, and this is what people in the West Bank deal with on a daily basis, trying to get places and being told they've got to take another hour route to get to where they want to go.
Experts warn the situation could soon boil over, an explosive mix of active militant groups and growing frustration.
I think things are getting grimmer by the week, and knowing that there are a lot of weapons there, I suspect we're going to see more armed resistance, more crackdown by the Israeli military.
For now, though, life here goes on. And while young people have only known a life of restriction, they still dream about a better future. I have two dreams, Sawar Abdelhar says. I want to find a job, and I hope for liberation. Heather Wright, CTV News, Nablus in the West Bank.
3 scientists who discovered techniques to predict and design the building blocks of life have won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. Here's how one of them found out the big news.
Apparently they had neither Dimas nor my phone numbers. And so they called us relatively late. So it was about 30 minutes before the scheduled press conference, and I hadn't gotten a call. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess it's the 9 and 10 that I don't get it. I turned to my wife, Carol, and I said, well, I guess it's not going to be this year. And 30 seconds later, I get this phone call from a Swedish area code.
American John Jumper and Briton Demis Hassabis used artificial intelligence to predict the structure of almost all known proteins. And U.S. scientist David Baker learned how to create entirely new proteins. Their efforts have yielded advances in areas such as drug development.
It was an iconic fixture on the Las Vegas Strip for nearly 7 decades. The Tropicana was imploded before dawn today. It was one of the most extravagant hotels when it first opened and was once known as the Tiffany of the Strip for its opulence. The Tropicana closed in April to make room for a new baseball stadium for the relocating Oakland Athletics.
Coming up, let the new season begin. Puck drops tonight on the Leafs' latest quest for the Cup. Will the team's tweaks translate into wins on the ice? We check in on the excitement in Leaf Nation.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, criminals are stealing people's identities with good credit ratings and then taking out loans in their name. One man was shocked to find out he owes more than $18,000 for loans that aren't his. I'll have that story. That's just ahead.
And it was a seasonal, but also a really windy day, and we're holding on to some of that breeze as we head into the early evening before things get a little nicer into the day tomorrow, thanks to high pressure coming in. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast, and stay with us. We have another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
We all know how important it is to protect our personal information, because if you don't, you could become the victim of identity theft.
Now, some criminals are stealing identities of people with good credit ratings so they can take out fraudulent loans in their name. Pat Foran has our story on Consumer Alert. Pat.
Nathan and Michelle, a Toronto man contacted us after a financial company asked him why he was missing his loan payments. That's when he found out his identity had been stolen and 2 loans for more than $18,000 were taken out in his name.
I feel devastated. Like I wouldn't be able to do it.
Edward Mendonca of Toronto says he always tries to maintain a good credit rating, especially since he hopes to be a first-time home buyer and purchase a condo next year. That's why he was shocked when he got letters from a finance company saying he was late on 2 loan payments.
I have never opened an account with this financial institution.
Mendonca was told this past summer he took out 2 loans, one for more than $6,000 and the other for more than $12,000. He told the company even though the loans were in his name, he had no knowledge of them.
It's affecting my credit rating. I'm trying to get this resolved.
Equifax says some consumers with high credit scores are being targeted by criminals. Scammers use stolen personal information to steal your identity and then apply for loans and credit cards.
They're impersonating you and taking advantage of your solid credit history and applying for something in your name.
If you're the victim of identity fraud, report it to police and get a report number. Advise your bank and credit card companies. Contact Equifax and TransUnion. Submit a dispute for an investigation and place a fraud alert on your credit reports. You may not realize you're an identity theft victim until you check your credit rating or are contacted by a collections agency.
You can end up with new credit accounts existing in your name that you might not ever know about.
After CTV News reached out on Mendonca's behalf, the 2 loans were forgiven and his credit score was restored, which was great news for him.
Oh, it's a huge relief. Thank you guys so much for all your help. Thank you, CTV. Thank you, Pat, and your whole team over there.
And criminals don't need much to steal your identity. Even a credit card statement and an old tax return could make you a target. Using a paper shredder to shred your documents before throwing them out can offer added protection. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
Well, we've got sunshine here as the sun sets in Toronto, but you can't help but think about all the folks in Florida as tonight's the night Hurricane Milton makes landfall. And when you hear all those warnings and the evacuation efforts and the tornado warnings, it's really awful what's coming.
Yeah, a lot of concern, and you keep hearing that it's going to make landfall tonight, but when you see some of the images, it almost seems like it's already begun.
Mm-hmm. The scope of this storm is so big that even before the eye reaches landfall, you're getting all of that rain being pushed on shore. You're getting all of that storm surge being pushed on shore. So before we even get to the worst of it, we're already dealing with really strong winds in excess of 200 kilometers an hour and tons of rain before we even get to the worst of it. It has been going on. We've been watching this for the past couple of days, and it really doesn't change. Here's another live look of Tampa right now, and you can see how strong the winds are, how much rain has already started, and we're starting to see some of that water level rise. As we make our way through the overnight, that's when this is set to make landfall in towards Tampa, St. Petersburg. We've been watching this. It's now a Category 3, but that doesn't mean it's any less severe. We'll take a look at our boards, and we are going to continue to track this as we head through the next couple of hours as it's set to make landfall. Set to be a historical rain system because this is such a large and vast hurricane. It covers almost the entire peninsula with the exception of areas extremely far north that we've already seen some tornadoes making their way through parts of Florida. It's as we get in towards the end of the day, Thursday and Friday, that it moves back into the Atlantic and turns into a low pressure system. Obviously here at home, a different story, but a lot of folks have connections to people out in Florida, so our thoughts are with everybody. But we are holding on to a much different forecast here, and as high pressure moves in over the next couple of hours, we end the week in a very seasonal and quite beautiful note. Right now, sitting at 10 degrees here in the city, and we're feeling that bit of a cool down thanks to a still chilly westerly and northwesterly wind. Tonight, dipping down to just 4 degrees. We're at 3 through Bancroft, 4 in Kingston, and we are seeing some frost advisories from Chatham, Kent, all the way up towards areas through almost about to Caledon. Into the day tomorrow, very seasonal once again, mostly cloudy. We're holding on to a little more sunshine into that first half of the day, and then we'll see the clouds in and out. That trough that was extending off a low, it all dissipates as we make our way through the evening. High pressure moves in, and it is going to be a really nice day tomorrow and into Friday, even nicer as wind direction changes, a southerly flow warming things up. Tonight, really not all that bad. A few light clouds out there. Sunny to start the day tomorrow. We'll see clouds off and on throughout the day, but we stay dry as we head through our Thursday. It clears out into the evening. That's when the high pressure really settles in, and heading into Friday, we climb back into the 20s as we get ready to wrap up the work school week. There's the potential of a few scattered showers overnight Friday into Saturday, but it moves out just in time to step in towards the weekend. So seasonal for the high tomorrow, cooler into the evening. We warm up really significantly as we head in towards our Friday. 21 for the high, 10 for the low, and then we have a more seasonal weekend ahead of us for the Thanksgiving weekend. We're watching for the chance of some scattered showers, not a wash of a day on Sunday, so if you do have outdoor plans during the Thanksgiving weekend, it won't be too bad. A little cooler into Monday, but as we step in towards next week, we approach the middle of October, it's going to cool down just a little bit. Michelle, send things back over to you.
Thank you, Jess. Well, a new analysis is putting a dollar figure on the damage caused by flooding across southern Ontario in August. The high water levels were due to 2 days of heavy rainfall. Initial estimates shared by the Insurance Bureau of Canada put the figure at more than $100 million. That brought the summer's total to more than $1 billion in insured damage, the vast majority of which was caused in July's flash floods.
Also tonight, outcry over plans for staffing in long-term care. Workers with less training brought in during the pandemic, poised to become a permanent part of the workforce.
I'm Mike Walker inside the climatic wind tunnel at Ontario Tech University, where we're getting a better understanding of hurricane-force winds. This as Hurricane Milton approaches Florida.
The union representing Ontario healthcare workers is speaking out against a new regulation on long-term care staffing.
Workers with less training brought in during the pandemic are poised to become permanent. CTV's health reporter Pauline Chan has more.
They were brought in during the pandemic, workers with less training but urgently needed to help at long-term care centers. But now the province wants to make so-called resident support workers a permanent part of the staffing.
We're calling today for this regulation to be removed, to be not enacted. We believe it's an attack on a workforce which is overwhelmingly female, highly racialized, and it has to be seen in that light. It's a move to depress wages in this sector, depress the skill levels, which will have a profound impact on the residents in these homes.
Pam Hayer, a long-term care PSW, says training is needed to care for these individuals.
It's not just the personal care. It's a PSW who's beside those residents when they're taking their last breath. It's a PSWs who's supporting those residents when they are emotionally low, when the families are busy with their own life.
The path this government is taking towards staffing in long-term care is the exact opposite path we need.
Dr. Vivian Stomatopoulos says she foresaw this move back in 2020.
The vast majority of long-term care residents not only have Alzheimer's and some form of dementia and an official dementia diagnosis, but most are on 10 or more medications. They have multiple comorbidities. There are many challenges and required and specialized training that is required to provide safe and dignified care in these facilities.
She fears lack of training will lead to unsafe conditions for residents and workers. But the Ministry for Long-Term Care says it is investing in training, saying the Ministry of Long-Term Care is currently funding programs to upskill existing staff, including resident support workers, to begin careers as personal support workers. This initiative is part of our broader $4.9 billion investment to support the hiring and training of thousands of new PSWs and nurses. Ontario has 626 long-term care homes. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
William Osler Health System is promising to do better going forward after a sick patient had his beard shaved over the summer without consent. The family of 85-year-old Joginder Singh Kauldhar says he was transferred to Brampton Civic Hospital in late August as he recovered from injuries sustained during a fall. They say they told the hospital not to shave his beard, as doing so would violate the tenets of their faith. But he was found clean-shaven a few days later. After investigating, the hospital system now says it failed to uphold religious and cultural care practices in shaving Singh Kauldhar without consent or medical necessity. The statement says, in part, we take full responsibility for this incident and have extended our deepest apologies to the patient and his family. It goes on to say we remain fully committed to strengthening the trust of our communities by upholding the deeply held religious rights and dignity of all patients in every interaction.
The Ministry of Health says 4 people are sick across the province after eating beef tongue contaminated with listeria. A number of brands of jellied beef tongue have been recalled, and more could still be pulled from shelves at multiple stores as Canada's Food Inspection Agency investigates. Anyone who's had the product should toss it or return it. Listeriosis can cause regurgitation, fever, and aches, and in severe cases, death. Toronto Public Health issued its own warning about listeriosis cases linked to sliced meat at a specific retailer just a few days ago.
Returning to our coverage of Hurricane Milton as it approaches Florida tonight.
It's expected to be one of the strongest Atlantic storms ever recorded, with wind speeds exceeding 200 kilometers an hour. So just how strong is that? To put it into perspective, we sent CTV's Mike Walker to Ontario Tech University to find out.
So right now we are measuring the wind speed.
This climatic wind tunnel at Ontario Tech University can simulate just how powerful hurricane winds can be.
25 kilometers per hour.
For our demonstration, we start out much lower gusts. But quickly, this umbrella is folded inside out.
Now we're approaching 70.
In another demonstration,
Gotta lean into a bit now here at 80 kilometers per hour.
It becomes difficult to stand still, but it's nowhere near the force of a Category 1 hurricane.
But if it is a large object, it will be moved forcefully.
For safety reasons, we use this flag to show a Category 1 hurricane with a minimum wind force of 120 kilometers per hour. Powerful enough to make this flag and pole a projectile in the real world. Milton is now considered a Category 3 hurricane, where powerful winds can range between 178 and 208 kilometers per hour. The National Weather Service says at that rate, devastating damage will occur.
You're going to start to see some branches break off outside on your lawn. You'll start to see garbage bins kind of flying across the street, and you'll see some potential shingles being raised on your home. Around the 4 or 5 is where you start to see trees being potentially uprooted in your lawn. Potential framing and building facades start to fall apart and degrade.
As Milton quickly churns towards Florida's coast, adding to mounting concern is leftover debris from Hurricane Helene just 2 weeks ago. In our simulation, wind gusts exceed 230 kilometers per hour. The corner of the flag appears to shred.
That shows the severe nature of what the potential hazards are with objects in those types of wind forces. Anything that hasn't been secured that could potentially move and do some harm.
Experts at Ontario Tech say Milton's impact will be devastating at its current rate, potentially taking weeks, if not months, to restore critical infrastructure for power and water supply. Mike Walker, CTV News, Oshawa.
He stepped up when he needed in order to save a life.
Updating our top stories, praise for a TTC operator who rescued a driver after a fiery crash. It happened early this morning near Bathurst and Eglinton. Police say a stolen Honda ran a red light and hit a bus, sending both vehicles flying into a second bus. The bus driver suffered non-life-threatening injuries and was able to pull the car driver to safety.
I regret that I missed the Jewish the memorial.
Mayor Olivia Chow is facing questions after she did not attend a vigil marking 1 year since the October 7th attacks in Israel. Chow cited reasons including other engagements running long and a miscommunication in her office, but said she intends to apologize.
So I urge everyone in Hurricane Milton's path to listen to local officials and follow all the safety instructions they give.
And Florida residents are bracing for the impact of Hurricane Milton, now classified as a Category 3 storm, but still expected to bring catastrophic damage when it makes landfall in the coming hours. Residents who haven't heeded advice to evacuate by now have been urged to take shelter.
Remember to keep up to date day and night at ctvnewstoronto.ca and by downloading the CTV News app.
On the markets, the Canadian dollar was down to $72.92 US. Oil was also down to $72.59. And the TSX Composite Index was up more than 152 points to close at 24,224.9.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
Well, it's the start of another season and renewed hope from Leafs Nation.
The quest for the Cup begins tonight in Montreal. CTV's Rahim Ladani reports.
It's the unmistakable sound that means one thing. Hockey is back and Leafs Nation is buzzing.
I'm excited. I like the new coach.
Inside Hockey Stick Man in Etobicoke, the Twigs are stocked with the likes of William Nylander, who's part of the core group of players back for another season.
You pay them this much money, this is your last chance. I think of it like Michael Jordan in The Last Dance. This is really your chance. Mind you, MJ had how many rings by the end of it? This is the one, boys. Let's go out and get it this year.
While there may be a sense of deja vu entering this season, the Leafs have made a few meaningful changes. Sniper Austin Matthews has traded in his A for the C as the 26th captain in Leaf history. Meanwhile, Stanley Cup winner Craig Berube is taking over behind the bench.
I'm excited for sure, just like the players. I feel a lot of the same as they do, and ready to get going.
I think that this coaching change could kind of get that group together. I mean, the talent is there. There's no question about it. It's just a matter of getting them together on the stage and having them, play a little bit more playoff-style hockey.
Under the microscope already, though, is the Leafs' goaltending. Joseph Woll is not ready for opening night, suffering from lower body tightness. That means Anthony Stolarz, who was signed in the offseason, will get the start. The good news, he'll have some help in front of him, with the Leafs also bolstering their blue line.
They bring in Chris Tanev from Dallas, which gives Morgan Rielly the best defensive pairing partner that he's had in his entire career with the Maple Leafs.
At this point, everyone's prepared, everyone's excited, everyone's ready to go, and I think it just comes down to execution.
While it's nice to be optimistic ahead of Game 1, Michael Patania has seen this story many times before, rarely with a happy ending.
We've had our good days and bad days. We had some really good playoffs in the 70s. And we should have won the Stanley Cup there in the 80s with Doug Gilmour, but we were robbed.
That doesn't mean he won't be watching, though, as the Leafs drop the puck against the Canadiens in Montreal. Rahim Ladani, CTV News.
Some NHL history was made in Seattle as Kraken assistant coach Jessica Campbell became the first woman to be behind the bench as an assistant coach. Kraken fans gave Campbell a warm welcome ahead of Tuesday's home opener. Seattle was unable to deliver a victory, losing 3-2 to the St. Louis Blues. Campbell played professionally in Canada and Sweden and was MVP of the 2010 Under-18 World Championship Canadian team.
Good news for Raptors fans. Scotty Barnes will return to the lineup Friday. He will start against the Wizards in a preseason match in Washington. It will be his first competitive game since he was injured on March 1st. Barnes broke his hand while blocking a shot.
Just ahead, expecting the unexpected. Ontario firefighters learn life-saving survival techniques in the most immersive and comprehensive training course.
Tonight, auto buyer beware.
concerning thing isn't that, a vehicle's stolen, but that this is contributing to organized crime.
A dealership busted selling stolen cars to unsuspecting buyers. Later on CTV National News.
Firefighters are called upon every day to head towards danger rather than away from it.
A special training course is underway here in the city, hoping to enhance the safety of those same first responders. This is Revival Film Studios, where 30 career firefighters are taking part in a fire ground survival training program. This multi-day course is run by the Ontario Professional Firefighters Association, and it's based on lessons learned from real-life incidents and case studies, while incorporating best practices in the event the unfortunate happens.
One of the things firefighters are very good at is looking after other people and putting themselves into buildings and places where other people will not go. But then when they get in those buildings, they haven't always focused well on what if they get in trouble. So this type of program trains other people, other firefighters, to go back to their department and train the people from their department. So it's a train the trainer program.
The Firefighters Association is aiming to certify more than 100 fire ground survival instructors by April.
You have to appreciate what first responders do even more when you see scenes like that. Right?
Those are images from Florida as Hurricane Milton makes landfall tonight. What do we know at this point?
The worst of it really comes overnight, so when folks are in the dark, which also makes this really, really challenging. As we get through the overnight, we're looking at the eye of the storm making landfall, and then it makes its way across from the west coast to the east coast. So we'll be able to tell more in the morning, but regardless, it's making landfall as a Category 3. Here at home, obviously a significantly different story, but our thoughts are with everybody in Florida. We saw some shower activity this afternoon that has since moved on, and high pressure will settle in quite nicely. Temperature-wise, it is noticeably cooler, but we have a much lighter northwesterly wind carrying us through our evening right now. Still pretty warm through Windsor at 16. Here in the city, sitting at 10. Now, into the day tomorrow, not brilliant sunshine right away, but by Friday, we're up into the 20s, and it is an excellent start to the Thanksgiving long weekends.
That's good to see. Thank you, Jess. That's it for us, but be sure to join Omar Sachedina tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Zoraida Allman with your next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and the whole team here at CTV News, thanks for watching and have a great night.